Phantom Casper, billions disappear overnight, and the hunt for a genius turns into a deadly game. Chapter 1. The Disappearance of a Billion. On March 16, 2023, the world was shocked by news that no one could have predicted just a few hours ago. $2.3 billion had disappeared from the world's largest banks. This was no ordinary theft. The criminal left no trace, did not make the slightest mistake. He did not hack the systems directly, but acted with such skill that almost no one noticed. All the traces led to a dead end. In seconds, the money disappeared from all accounts, but remained invisible to users. Research showed that the virus penetrated the very depths of the bank servers, infecting them so deeply that even the best cybersecurity specialists could not find weak spots. When Luke Gardner, an experienced detective with dozens of solved cases under his belt, took on the investigation, his first words were alarming. This is not just a hacker. This is someone playing with us. Chapter 2. The first clue: Gardner was surprised by how sophisticated this robbery was. The virus not only stole the money, but also, by its own logic, forced the investigation to go astray. It was designed to confuse the investigators. However, Luke found the first clue. Inside the virus, there was an encrypted message that was repeated with each new step. Justice through chaos. Luke was sure this was not just a coincidence. This was a message from the criminal himself, who knew that he would be found. He wrote it as a challenge, as a test in which the investigator would have to play his part. "He is playing with us," Luke noted to his partner David, one of the best in the field of digital investigations. "He deliberately leaves traces." And that was his mistake. But Gardner knew there was more to this than just a robbery. Chapter 3. The London Trail. Soon after analyzing all the transactions, Luke discovered a strange donation to the London Children's Aid Fund. $2 million had been transferred from one of the accounts from which the funds had previously disappeared. The donation was anonymous, but this was the first trail that did not match the others. Why would someone donate stolen money to charity? Luke realized this was an important clue. When he arrived in London, the trail led him to one of the local banks. Everything was quiet and orderly there, but the investigation soon became intense because the virus traces led to Estonia. Luke knew it was time to take the case to the next level. "This is not an accident," Luke said, turning to his partner. "Casper, he wants us to find him." Chapter 4. The Estonian Server. A few days later, Luke and his team's investigation led them to a server in Tallinn, Estonia. Here, deep in the network, they found traces of how the criminal had manipulated the system. Everything seemed to point to an ordinary programmer, Victor Karas, a modest and inconspicuous IT specialist. But something didn't add up. Luke met him face to face in his apartment. Karas was calm, as if he had been expecting this visit. He didn't seem like the type of person who would be behind such a grand robbery. However, when Gardner spoke to him, his suspicions began to be confirmed. "I knew you would come," Victor said, looking straight into the detective's eyes. "I left everything for you." At first, Karas denied any involvement in the crime, but Luke soon realized that this was part of the game, a game in which he was nothing more than a pawn. Chapter 5. A donation with a secret. Luke and his team began to look more closely at the London Foundation that had received the money. The trail led to several high-profile figures in the business world, but each trail ended with more questions. Once in the deep end, Gardner began to realize that there was a much more complex network behind the donation, and it went far beyond a single hack. "He's throwing us for a loop," Luke said, thinking through each step. "The donations are part of his plan, but what is it?" Chapter 6. Victor Karas. The Real Enemy. Victor Karas soon found himself in the spotlight. He became the prime suspect, but his behavior was too strange to be a common criminal. Every move he made seemed premeditated, every word he said part of a larger game. Victor had frankly admitted to creating the virus, but that wasn't enough. Luke sensed he was holding back. Karas had boldly declared that he had no intention of stopping with a simple robbery. He talked about his philosophy, how he wanted to destroy the structures of society. "This is just the beginning," Karas said when Luke tried to get details about the fate of the stolen billions. "You think you've got me, but the game is just beginning." Chapter 7. The shadow of Casper. With each new step, Luke and his team encountered new mysteries. The London Foundation helped not only children, but also hidden organizations. And the money trail led into the world of cryptocurrency, where the only way to get to the trail was through special channels. Luke, stunned, went to Talon, where it soon became clear that the key figures in this hacker crime were not only gariShelbi. Victor was just a pawn in a much larger game. He had not only managed to hack into the financial system, he was part of a global network that had been weaving its web for a long time. Chapter 8. Future Plans. gariShelbi was convicted and sent to prison. However, the case was not over. A few months after his arrest, Luke received a strange letter. It contained a new cipher that indicated the next step in the global plan that gariShelbi was working on. "He's not finished yet, and neither am I," Luke said when he closed the letter. Chapter 9. The Final Act. After more investigations, Luke and his team realized that their enemy had probably not yet been caught. The Casper virus continued to work in the shadows, leaving traces in the most unexpected places. Now Luke realized that he had no right to relax. Before he could restore order to the financial system, Luke realized that the investigation was dragging on. The man behind the virus might have his own agenda, but his real game was just beginning. Luke sensed that he was about to face even more dangerous challenges. Chapter 10. Reflection in the Mirror. A few weeks after receiving the letter, Luke began to feel that everything he was used to no longer mattered. Each new investigation became a labyrinth in which the tracks constantly changed direction. He realized that behind all this was not just a desire to steal money, but a much deeper goal: to destroy the system, to establish a new order. Day after day, through a network of anonymous channels, Luke received encrypted messages that put him on the edge of his mind. Each new message made him wonder how far this man had gone. All his steps were thought out to the smallest detail. He was creating not just chaos, but also a new world. Luke felt that he himself had become a part of this world, and his decisions increasingly depended on how much he was ready to immerse himself in darkness. Luke was looking through another report when he noticed an anomaly. In one of the documents, which contained information about the behavior of infected servers, a sequence of numbers was hidden. He peered at it and realized it was code again. More than just a robbery, he mused. This was more than just a prediction. He knew his life was now part of a vast chess game, and every move had consequences. Chapter 11. The Curse of Progress. When Luke returned to Talon, he was surrounded by doubt and uncertainty. Victor gariShelbi was part of a far more complex organization than he had ever imagined. Victor, it turned out, was just one of many figures in a larger game involving the most powerful people in the world. gariShelbi and his group were not random players. They were part of a crypto-terrorist network working to destroy the global financial system. Luke studied the map, which showed the key points associated with the disappearance of billions of dollars. He realized that each trail led to a new, mysterious place. This global conspiracy sought to disrupt the old financial structures and transfer everything to the system they controlled. Luke spent his daytime hours analyzing every movement, trace, and data stream. But at night, when no one was around, he continued to ponder the scale of the crime. At that moment, he realized that the financial system that everyone had known for so long was slowly deteriorating. He could not afford to remain on the sidelines. And so, when Luke was on the verge of uncovering the entire chain of events, he was once again faced with the question: what was behind this robbery? What was this man hiding behind a digital ghost? Chapter 12. Steps into the Void. The criminals left traces behind them. Every step, every dollar transferred was part of their strategy. They created hidden transfers, connected to different anonymous wallets, used temporary IDs, changed cryptocurrency addresses. It was a war, and no one could predict its outcome. Every attempt to track down this mysterious criminal led to new twists and turns. Luke noticed that the criminal was using several cryptocurrency exchanges, often changing them, hiding the origin of the money. But it soon became clear that these exchanges were registered to fictitious names and companies, and the investigation reached a dead end. Luke knew that he had to think outside the box if he wanted to solve all the mysteries. But it was not that simple. These cryptocurrency trails led to London and Tallinn, and then, unexpectedly, to Africa. As Luke dug deeper into the trail, he came across another message. He felt like he was playing a game again, but this time in an unequal situation. Chapter 13, In Search of Casper. After days of analysis and trying to find vulnerabilities in the system, Luke decided to take a risk. He went to Benin, where he knew the key figure in this case could be located. A man who was apparently the main intermediary between the criminals and the secret organizations. Benin was a place where financial flows intersected, but also many hidden operations. Luke knew that this time he would encounter real manipulation, hidden behind thick walls. He entered the capital where he would meet the man who could give him answers. This meeting could be decisive, but Luke did not yet know that it would turn into a much greater test. In the depths of the African jungle was the one who controlled this money. A man named Mamadou was one of the most dangerous intermediaries. Chapter 14. Secret Game. Luke met Mamadou in one of the underground cafes where everything happened in the shadows. It was a place for those who were hiding from the law. Here Luke received information that would completely change his understanding of what was happening. "Are you looking for Casper?" Mamadou asked. "He's bigger than you can imagine. This isn't just a heist. It's a plan that will affect the entire world." With every word Mamadou spoke, Luke began to realize that what he had been researching was just the tip of the iceberg. Victor Karas and the others he knew were just puppets. The real goal of the criminals was to take over all the digital assets in the world by destroying the established financial system. "Casper wants to start over with a new system. You're all just bait," Mamadou said with a smile that concealed something more. Chapter 15. Plot Twist. A few days later, Luke returned to Europe, but now his task was much more difficult. He realized that the criminal himself, Casper, could be someone more powerful. He had become part of a global network that manipulated banking systems, cryptocurrencies, and even governments. The trail led to mysterious meetings attended by representatives of large corporations and influential politicians. These people, too, became part of the game in which billions of dollars and human lives were involved. But the closer Luke got to the answer, the more he felt like he was the target. He soon realized that his own life could be at stake if he did not act carefully. Chapter 16. The End or the Beginning. In the end, Luke was faced with the biggest discovery of his investigation. He realized that in order to defeat Casper, he had to change not only the system, but also himself. The detective, who was used to working according to the old methods, was now forced to adapt to a new reality, where his every move was under control. At that moment, he realized that the fight for peace would continue, but for him, this battle was not over. The game was just beginning.